Alright, hello there fellow coder, welcome to this next lesson in our series where we are creating a web app from scratch using React as a front end and Spring Boot as the back end, leveraging Java and whatnot. In this one we're going to be expanding on our last video where we started to build out the code to create assignments, as this is a assignment submission app. We created the view to start the process of creating an assignment. So this one we will further, build out that view. So if that sounds like it is of interest to you, stick around. All right, fellow coder, let's get started with this lesson. So as I alluded to, the dashboard is now where we have this submit new assignment, where when we click on it, it creates a new assignment. Now, it creates an empty assignment in the database with just a connection with a user that is logged in. And now our goal will be to allow us to edit those assignments. So really we should just list out the assignments here in the dashboard. Maybe that's the lowest hanging fruit at the moment, is to do that. So let's, on the dashboard, we have our button to create the new assignments, but then we should probably have some sort of a div to, excuse me, to display all the assignment data, right? So basically the way I do this typically is what do? I wrap it in some sort of variable that is used to store all of the data, right? So maybe we'll have a variable called something like, I don't know, assignments, okay, and then set assignments, and then we'll use use state, okay, and this will start as null, so it'll be empty. And basically what we will do is with the assignment data, we can then take the assignment data here. We can say, do we have data for the assignments? If yes, then we can do something like assignments dot map, and we can transform the data inside of the actual data for each assignment. We can transform that individual assignment data, the JSON data, into HTML elements, or rather JSX elements, for us to display on the screen. So we can take each assignment and we can turn it into essentially like a div. Right? That's essentially what we're getting at, is being able to create a div for each one of those assignments. And if there isn't anything here, then what do? Just return like an empty element. Okay, so this allows us to then grab this stuff on load. So how do we grab the data on load? We want to fetch the data from the backend on load. So we can use a useEffect hook, which takes a function, and then it takes an argument, a list of dependencies. Now, when you leave the dependency list empty, that means it is run once on load. So essentially, this function in here will be run once on load. So we want to essentially fetch the assignments. So we got to do API/assignments, and this will be a GET request. So our headers here will be, it's an object, so we'll have content type of application JSON. And I did promise that I would refactor this at some point, because this is not good to keep on typing in the same stuff. We should extract this out into its own, I don't know, we should just extract it out so that we don't keep having to type in the same headers over and over. And then authorization, bearer. Now let me use the backticks because we want to inject our bearer token like this. Okay. And yeah, I basically want to have it so that I don't have to, we can wrap any fetch like this. We can wrap a fetch in our own function that we can put in like a utility, utility JavaScript script somewhere that wraps around this kind of fetch thing and allows us to, pass in a JWT. And if we pass in a JWT, then it'll automatically inject it like this, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that won't be too hard, but let me just keep plugging away what we're doing here. So headers will be that. And if we don't specify a method, it will default to get. But we can just, be explicit here and type in get for our method. But just know that you don't have to do that. So we'll do a get. And it's complaining. Why is it complaining? JWT is a dependency. Good point. Although we should have it set. It should be okay. We should have a JWT at that point, if I'm not mistaken. Cool. So now we need to actually map this out, right? So this actually, when we say .then we can have a response, etc., etc. And we can say, hey, if the response status is 200 code, meaning okay, then we can return, response.json, that kind of thing. We should wrap all this in curly brackets so that it's happy. Save it and it reformats it. And then we can have the assignments data is what we get back. And then basically all we want to do here is we want to just say set assignments and pass in assignments data, right? We just want to update assignments data. And then when that happens, we want to, this will happen. This will trigger and it'll realize it has data now, and then it'll start doing this map stuff. And then for each assignment in here in the div, we can start to put output data like, what is it? What variables do we have access to? I forget. So for the assignments data, we have access to ID, branch, code review, blah, 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 and status. So maybe we'll output the ID for now. So we'll do, assignment ID, and then output assignment.id. And good enough. We'll just do that. Okay. What's wrong? Could not proxy request. Oh, right, because, there is no, that endpoint doesn't exist yet. So now we need to flip over to our server side to get, create a controller for the assignments domain object. Okay, so now that we've opened up our Eclipse, we can start creating the controller. So, we have an assignment controller already. API assignments. Okay, cool. So we just have the post mapping, but we need the get mapping. So get mapping will be what we use to return the assignments that are assigned to this particular user. So get assignments. And then again, authentication principles seem like it worked. So we'll inject that like this. And now we want to be able to get the assignments that are assigned to this user, right? That were created by this user. So how do we do that? Well, we need to go to our repository and see, do we have, in the assignment repository, we don't have a query yet that queries by something, right? You can find by ID, which is built in, via this JPA repository, but we can't find by user, right? So the assignment has a user, there is no find by user. So we're gonna have to create one ourselves. Thankfully, if it's just as simple as find by user, because the user exists already right here as a property, Spring Data allows us to do that just by using find by. So when we're creating a method here, we create an abstract method. The find by is a reserved sort of word, sentence, word, combination of words that's used by Spring Data JPA that will create a query for us. Without us having to write in the query, it will just create it for us, which is really fun and really awesome, very powerful. It means that we don't have to write a lot of SQL. So find by what? Find by user. Okay, and then find by user implies that you need to have a user to find by. So we pass in that user as part of the methods parameter list. And then what does find by user return? Well, remember, we are inside of the assignment repository, so we are going to be receiving essentially a list of assignments, right? Or maybe a set of assignments, because you want to have a unique number of assignments, okay? So Control-Shift-O to import the stuff we need, user from our thing, and set from Java util, and that's it. When we say find by user, we don't have to do anything else. Because this is a special name, this find by prefix is built into Spring Data JPA, what we put in after this will it'll know that user exists as a property in the assignment object, and it will query by that property. So that's gonna just work. In other words, here, well, we should probably create a service. Oh, we already have one, assignment service. So inside of the assignment service, we should have like a public, and it returns a set of assignment objects. We should call this find by user, right? And pass in the user. And then we'll have this use the assignment repo dot, find by user, and just have it return that. Control-Shift-O to import the set because it was complaining about that. And that's really it. For now, the the service just calls the repository. It feels a bit cumbersome to do that, but that's just good practice to do it that way. You don't want to have the repository. We should not have a repository built into the controller. Okay, as soon as you start wiring in repositories into controllers, that's bad. Repositories should be in services. Services should be in controllers, right? Cool. So now we can say, hey, assignment service dot find by user. We have a user. It's being passed in right here. Boom. That's going to give us a list of assignments, which we can then return. We'll have to say response entity dot body or dot OK, and we pass in a body of the find by user, right? Now that's a bit much if someone's a little bit newer. Assignments by user. There. So now the assignments by user is being assigned to a variable, and then we return that as the body of this method. Okay. So let's run our app. Right here, right click, run as Spring Boot app. Let it boot up. It's so beautiful. There we go. Now we can try this again, refresh. La la! So now we have all the assignments being displayed on our front end. Goodness gracious, isn't that beautiful? So there we go. So now that we have the assignments, again, it's not very useful right now because they don't do anything, but maybe we can turn it into links, right? Maybe we can have in the front end, a lot just happened there. We were able to query from the database, bring the data, and show it in the front end. That's pretty cool. That's like, that it warms me on the inside. It makes me feel so good. I love this kind of stuff. I love coding. It's just so fun. Okay, we can turn this into a link. So we can say link to, and wrap this in link. Why is this angry? What did I do? It doesn't like... What have I done? It doesn't like the backticks? Is it because it needs to be an object? And then I put backticks? Maybe. Link, we need to import it from React Router DOM, so I did control space there to import. So link to what? We want to link to, what is it? Slash assignments slash, and then the assignment ID, which is assignment.id, I think. Boom, so now these are all links, and if I click on one, it should go to, assignment /1, see? So, cool. Good. Let's just make this a bit bigger until I can see that. There we go. And we'll shrink this a little bit, just like this. Okay. So now we've turned it into links that we can click on, and now we can actually start to get to work on the view, which now I see we're like 15 minutes in. Hey, we did the R part of CRUD, right? So, but I want to stay true to my word, so let's keep going. Let's start to build out this view, because that's what I promised you at the beginning of this video. So we'll start to build out the view. So the view, essentially here, we have a new route. So if you remember, the route data is in app.js. Okay, app.js holds our route data. Right now we have a route that's called login that goes here. The home page is here, and the dashboard is a private route, meaning you have to be logged in to see it. That's right here. So we want to have another route, which will also be private. So a route, and this route's path will be /assignment, and then I forget how to, oh man, how do you do this? How do you say /number? Shoot. I forget how to make this dynamic. Okay. React router dynamic path. Declarative routing. Right, ID. Right. Okay. I believe that's how you do it. So slash and then ID. And then can you do something with that ID? I forget. You can probably do something with that ID later. Dashboard. Anyway, I'm just going to say that, hey, I've got it. That's all I need to do. So assignment slash ID is the path. And then within here, the element, come on, element that it's going to be loading, it will be an object, and it will be wrapped with a private route. Right? So this private route will wrap the element, which will be what? It's going to be some sort of, assignment. This is like our, it's kind of like an assignment view, which we'll do like that. Now, assignment view doesn't exist, so let's create it. We'll create a new folder, assignment view, and then inside of here, we will add a new file called index.js. And then this is React stateless component, RSC, enter. Again, that comes from one of our plugins or our extensions, which is code formatter or something like that, or I forget what it's called. Anyway, this is called what? Assignment view. What is the extension called? Oh, React.js code snippets is what I just used. RSC allows me to autocomplete. Okay, so now we have an assignments view, which should be this guy. And in this assignments view, I'm feeling like we should have the assignment ID. Although I guess we don't pass in the assignment ID. That comes from the route. It comes from the yeah. So how can you access that data from the route? I forget that as well. Now you can always do it via the URL. There might be a way to do it via the route. Like I said, getting that access to the ID, because there's that little variable thing there in, where was it? App.js. So there's that this little guy here. Leads me to believe there's a way to get it from the route, but anyway, you can also just get it by doing window location. So window location href, and you can say split to split it by /assignment/, right? And then on the right hand side of that, the first element on the right hand side will be the ID, right? So this is going to be the assignment ID, right? So that's how you get the assignment ID. And then we can put a header here and say assignment and then assignment ID. Okay. Now, how come that? I thought that should work now, right? That should have brought up, unless we need to reboot. Oh, there's an error. Look at that. Private route is not a route component. All children must be. Okay, what did I do wrong? Did I not copy paste properly? So routes. Oh, it has to be open. And it's self-closing. Like that. Ta-da! Assignment 1. Right? Oops. So assignment 1 is 1 because I'm at /1. If I go to /2 and hit enter, assignment 2. Right? So we're pulling that variable from the URL, but I believe there's another way to do it via the route. But yeah, that's how we could start the process. Again, I don't have any mock-ups of what these things should look like. It's all in my brain right now because I'm building this app for myself. I'm literally, the code that I'm writing here, I don't know if you guys realize that, the code that I'm writing here is actually what I'm going to use in my own business. Okay, I run coding boot camps, 6-month intensive coding boot camps, and there are 14 different assignments that students need to submit. And keeping track of all the different assignments that have been submitted and what status they're in. Are they being code reviewed, or are they not in code review? Or are they being, thrown back to the student because it's not good enough yet, and then the student hasn't done anything, and then need to be reminded, hey, there's action that needs to be taken on your end, Mr. Student or Mrs. Student. And then, or maybe it's on the code reviewer side, the code reviewers need to be reminded that they, added a code review to their queue, but then they haven't done anything with it in like 24 or 48 hours and they've just been sitting there, I can send them reminders. You know what I mean? There's managing assignments is not a trivial task, especially when you get to the point where you have, potentially hundreds of students. So, and let's say dozens of code reviewers. So this app is going to solve that problem for me. So this is real code. The code that I'm writing here is going to be used by my business in the real world by students and code reviewers alike, as well as myself. So yeah, this is going to be real code. So anyway, having said that, it's in my brain right now what it should look like. So obviously what it does look like is awful, and I'm aware of that, and we'll change that eventually when I get a better idea of what I want this thing to look like. But for now, functionality trumps design. Don't tell any designers that. So we're going for functionality first. So boom, assignment 2 is a title. Now what we want to do here is we want to be able to edit this assignment, right? The view here should allow us to edit the assignment information. Now, obviously, we should only be able to edit the assignment if we were the one that created it or we are the one assigned to it as a code reviewer. That logic is not going to be in here right now. It will eventually, but it's not in here right now, so keep that in mind. Right now, anyone can go to this URL if they were running the app and they'd be able to edit the assignment. That's not ideal. I only want the student or the code reviewer who's reviewing this to be able to edit this assignment. Cool. So, but for now, anyone can edit it. So, what are the fields that belong to the assignment? The ID, which should not be changed, branch, code review URL, GitHub URL, status, and user ID. So the status, we can show the status maybe as like an H2. We'll say status is, and then assignment dot status. Ooh, and that's interesting. We don't have the assignment, right? This assignment view doesn't have the assignment loaded. Okay, so we're gonna have to load the assignment by ID. So same thing. Const assignment set assignment equals use state start with null, and then basically we won't load any of this info, or at least anything in here, until we have an assignment. So if we have an assignment, then we can say, cool, assignment.map, right? And we can map, oh, but that's not a, sorry. This is not a collection of stuff. It's not like an array of stuff. So that's not, so if we have an assignment, then we can just, start doing something. Otherwise, we'll leave it blank, right? So this is where we can start doing something. This is where we can say H2. Save, right? So I just reformatted the code, but hey, if we have an assignment, which is via the ternary operator, meaning if this is not null or undefined, then render this code, which will render out the status with the H2. Whereas if it is null, then don't render anything yet. That's essentially what that means. So when I save it, again, nothing shows up, but now we can do the fetch, right? And this is where I should really refactor the code. Maybe we'll do that in the next video. Use effect hook. We'll do this on load, right? On load, we will do the use effect hook to do a fetch statement to grab the individual assignment. So let's grab the, in here, let's just copy this guy. Actually, no, not this guy. Homepage, no. Where was he? Where was I? Dashboard? Here. Let me copy this fetch that we did from the, for loading all the assignments, because it's going to be similar for just loading one assignment. So we'll paste this in here. So it's no longer API/assignments. It's going to be API/assignments/ and then the ID of the assignment. So we'll need to use our backtick notation to inject the assignment ID. Okay. Now, oh, we don't have JWT, so let's copy paste that in there as well. JWT, we'll copy this one. Use local state. Again, there's got to be a better way to do that than just pasting the same code in over and over again. We shall refactor at some point. Okay. This will be a get request. If response is 200, then boom, here's the assignment data, and then we will set assignment for assignment data. Okay, now there's going to be an error because we don't have this endpoint mapped out on our server side. So now on our server side, we need to have a get mapping similar to this, but we'll have a get mapping that has the ID, assignment ID, right? I forget if that's the right notation or not. We'll find out. And this is called a path variable. Okay, so the path variable is right here. This is what's going to be a dynamic variable, and it will be a long, and we'll call it assignment ID. Oops. So this name, assignment ID, has to match what's in here. Okay, that those two are the same thing. This path variable that I'm going to import from Spring comes from this. Okay, don't quote me. I forget if it's a $sign or not a $sign. I think there's no $sign. We'll find out. Cool. So now that this will automatically be pulled from here. So this will be assigned. The value will be injected into here based on what the URL is. So now that we have the assignment ID, guess what? We can kind of do this, but we need to do something different. We need to say assignment service find by ID and pass it the assignment ID. This will return an optional, actually, yeah, it'll return an optional assignment. We'll call this assignment, and basically what we'll do is we'll say, we should call it OPT because it's an optional, and I'll explain why it's an optional in a moment. We'll call it, we call it assignment OPT because that's sort of the convention to let us know that it's an optional. So we'll return that, or else, if there is no assignment, what should we do? Maybe we'll just return a new blank assignment. That's not the greatest solution in my mind, but at least we handle that null case. That's what optional is all about, is if you have a null value, you want to force yourself to handle it. And that's what optional is good at, is forcing us to handle the scenario where we don't have the data. Now, find by ID on assignment service doesn't exist. And that's okay. I'm going to hover over it, and I'm going to say create the method myself, or automatically. Boom. So it just created the method stub inside of the assignment service. And now from in here, what we do is we say assignment repo, because that's what we have access to inside of the assignment service. We say assignment repo.find by, and look at this, find by ID. And wouldn't you know it, this returns an optional wrapper around our assignment object. It's almost like I knew exactly what I was doing. This time I did. So basically we just return that. Okay, we return find by ID, it returns an optional, and then the controller can handle it appropriately. So let's reboot. Did that not work? There. Rebooting. And then, is that going to work now? So if I come back here and refresh. Oh, assignments API. Oops. I'm calling the wrong endpoint. I'm saying fetch. Why is it putting assignments in front of that? Because that's the right. So if I say /API, there we go. Okay. So what was happening there was it was calling /assignment/API because I didn't have a / in front of it. So you really should have a / there. But there you go. It grabbed the status of needs to be submitted. I can prove to you that that's the status because I can go over to my database, and for assignment 2, I can change it to something else like, hello, right? And I can apply that and finish. And then if I refresh, it says hello. So just to show you that it really is getting that data from the database. There you go. And yeah, so that's sort of the start of our view, right? And then from this assignment, we have the status, and then we can start building out things like the editable stuff. So the update. So we've done the C, we've done the R, but now we need to get to the U and the D, the update and the delete, because we need to be able to, update our assignment, right? So we need to be able to have, what was it called? The branch, the GitHub URL, so the GitHub URL is probably one of the more important things that we need to have. Input type equals, you know, can I say URL? I forget. And then ID equals, you know, GitHub URL. Can I do that? Nice. Okay. And so we'll be able to type that in, and you know, we'll hook this input object up to a just like we did before, where as we type stuff in, it'll keep the data in sync, and then we can have like a save button and all that stuff. And yeah, we can keep going, you know, for GitHub URL, and then we can have one for code review video URL, code review video URL, although this probably shouldn't show up unless you actually have one. So yeah, maybe we won't do that one. This is more for when the code review is done. The branch, this will just be text. And then status we have shown, and that's really it, right? So for now, the two most important things for the student is to submit the GitHub URL and the branch, and then we can have, you know, a little button here that says submit assignment or something like that, right? Very, very simple, very ugly, I know, but again, we're going for functionality first. So that's sort of what we'll have sort of in place at the moment. And then we will update the code so that it actually updates the database with this information and actually pulls it from the database as well. Right? So all of that beautiful stuff, all the binding of the data and whatnot, we'll dive into in the next video. And then maybe after we're done binding it and everything, maybe then we'll start to jump into some refactoring and bring in maybe some bootstrap stuff to make it look prettier, and so on and so forth. But for now, thank you for watching. If this has been fun for you, if you really enjoy this stuff, but I might be going way too fast for you and you're missing like 80% of what I'm saying, you're probably not alone. And that's because this information is coming from, I have many, many years of experience as a coder. I think I have 14 or something, 15 years of experience as a coder. If you are new to coding, or if you've been coding on your own as a self-taught coder, this stuff is going to be very overwhelming to you. And that is, well, I should even say, if you're in university, this could also be overwhelming to you. That is fairly normal in university. It is very normal if you're a self-taught developer or if you're pretty much brand new. It's very normal that you might be very overwhelmed at this point because there is so much information that I'm pulling from, so much knowledge that I'm pulling from to put all these pieces together in front of you. It could look like magic, right? So if this does look like magic and you want to be able to do this on your own and you've been trying to figure it out in university and struggling with it, or if you're trying to figure it out on your own as a self-taught developer, and you've been doing it for like 6 months already and you haven't made much headway and you're in tutorial hell, which is why you're watching this video, dude or dudette, please consider a boot camp, okay? I've published a video before on how boot camps are actually the least expensive route to learning how to code. So, and there's data to back that up. Get yourself into a boot camp. Again, it doesn't have to be mine, but if you're interested in mine, if you like the way that I teach, if you're already familiar with me, I go a lot slower in the boot camp. I don't go this fast. But there's me in there. I have other instructors in there and code reviewers that help you along the way and teach you everything you need to know to get a job as a full stack developer. So if this is of interest to you, I would highly recommend the bootcamp and checking it out and applying. You can go to coderscampus.com/bootcamp. And this gives you everything you need to get a job as a coder, okay? This is a proven system. Our placement rate in terms of graduates is almost 100%. We do everything in our power to make sure that you are absolutely as ready as you can be for the real world and for getting that first job. Okay, if you're absolutely brand new and you've never coded anything before, it's probably going to take you like 9 months to get through the whole boot camp. But if you're sort of picking up a little bit of what I'm talking about in these videos, if you're sort of following along and being like, yeah, I get what he means, then it might only take you 6 months. And if you really understand most of what I'm saying here, then it's probably only going to take you like 4 months to get through the boot camp, okay? Just to give you an idea of what to expect. And that's based on working about 20 hours a week in the boot camp. So this can be done part-time, evenings and weekends, okay? So it can be done in the comfort of your own home, within the flexibility of your own schedule. Now, If you want to apply, before you apply, don't apply if you are someone who only has like 10 hours a week. Okay, 10 hours a week, not enough. 15 is like getting to be the bare minimum of what we're okay with. So you need to have time to put into this. Don't lie to yourself. There's no benefit in lying and saying to yourself and saying in the application, yeah, I have 20 hours a week, if you do not. 20 hours a week is a lot of time. So think about it. It's like 3 hours a day every single day of the week, or like 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday in the evening, and then 10 more hours, like a whole day on the weekend. So you get 1 day of rest with that schedule, okay? So it literally means you are throwing everything else in your life out the window and you're just focusing on this and whatever your full-time job is. Now, if you don't have a full-time job and you don't have anything except for time to dedicate to learning at boot camp, then go for it. Then you're good. So having said that, you need the time and you need more than just the urge to make more money. Okay, if all you're doing is seeking this to make money, you're going to quit because it gets hard. This stuff is very hard, okay? So don't do it if you're just seeking the money. You need to have a bigger purpose, a bigger passion, a bigger vision, a bigger drive underneath that's going to pull you and that you just, you can't stop but to keep pushing forward. You can't stop in this journey of learning how to code. You are so interested in this and you dream about it and you think about it during your day job, and then those are good signs. Then by all means do apply. But if you just have motivation alone, everyone has motivation at the beginning. Motivation wanes very quickly. Motivation goes away within the first 15 days in the boot camp. And you realize, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Okay? And if you have no more motivation and if you have no drive underneath that, guess what happens? You drop out. And that is not a good situation for either of us. So don't do that. Cool? So if you've got the drive, if you've got more than motivation, if you've got the passion, the interest and the curiosity of wanting to learn this skill set, and you haven't been able to do it on your own, or you have doubts in university, like I don't think I'm ready for the real world. I get many university students in the program as well. Please do consider applying to the bootcamp, coderscampus.com/bootcamp. Click the big apply button and we can book a call and chat. So, sound good? Hopefully that does. And if you're just here to watch, then by all means go above here, click on the button above my face to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the next video when it comes out. So, as always, take care of yourself, happy learning, and bye for now.